Ladies and gentlemen, Caravan fans, welcome to the Huddle here at Mount Carmel High School. My name is Matt Malloy. I'm joined here with my good friend and freshman Brendan Daigler. Brendan, buddy, how are we doing today?
We're doing great. It's just been a great week overall. Had some nice weather out here in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
So we're hoping to see a good football game this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Friday is supposed to be beautiful. Hopefully, we're not going to have to wear anything over these beautiful green T-shirts that were made. Shout out to Mr. LeCount. He's done so much this week. He's put up a lot around the school. Just everything with these shirts to posters to flyers all around. Because this game is being played in honor of Mr. Kevin Hansen.
Yep.
I know, Brendan, we didn't get to meet Mr. Hansen. He unfortunately passed away back in 2015 to leukemia. It was a very sudden and tragic death, and I think it's awesome that we get to play a game in honor of him because while he was a teacher here at Mount Carmel, he was the valedictorian of his class back in 1999. He graduated from Joliet Catholic. So there's a lot of meaning for both schools in tomorrow's game. I almost said tonight, but the reason we're putting out this pregame show a little earlier than we usually do is because tomorrow during the game, Caravan Broadcast Network will be streaming this on the Marquee Sports Network. This is definitely the biggest game we've ever had, the biggest opportunity we've ever had. We are extremely grateful to the people at Marquee that are putting on this community showcase, is what they're calling it. They're going all over the city, all over the state to show why these student broadcast organizations and clubs matter, why it's really important to get kids involved in this kind of stuff. And Brendan, I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
Where we went from YouTube with a couple hundred people watching. Now we're going to be on national TV. Brendan, you'll be there on the field helping us out. Our usual lineup of Leonard and Christos, they're on Kairos right now, so we're having the younger guys help out tonight. Overall, it's been an incredible week, and you know what? Let's just get into our first segment. Let's start talking about some high school football. It's been quite a while since I've done a pregame show personally. Sean, let's head right into our 2 cents. So the first game we've got here, it's a bit of a shake-up just to kind of get things started. Honestly, I put this game on here because I wanted to talk about how well East St. Louis is doing.
Yes.
The Alton Redbirds 0-6, haven't won a game yet, going up against the number one team in the state. We are taking the Flyers in this one. I believe they're going to go 7-0. They play IMG Week 9, which really that isn't their first test of the season, though. They played Loyola Week 1.
Yeah.
And, man, they passed with flying colors. That was an incredible game for East St. Louis. For any Loyola fan, that was a rough start to the season.
Mm-hmm.
The Ramblers have bounced back, though. They have the same record as the Caravan right now, 4-2. The Flyers, though, man, they're on that train. They're going undefeated. I really have faith in them. And obviously, I'm going to be rooting for them when they play IMG. I think whenever you have a team from Illinois, especially down south, that does this well, this consistently, you got to pull for them a little bit. However, if the Caravan do see them sometime in the near future, maybe next year or something in a big cross-state matchup, we're going to be rooting for the Caravan. But I think it's great. The Flyers are doing this well. They've got a great lineup, a lot of returning starters. They've dealt with some special teams difficulties, but they've cleared that up. They've got to organize. Brendan, I know you're taking the Flyers as well.
Yeah,
but
of
what do you got to
course.
say about them? Yeah.
I think, as you could say, I think the Flyers are going to fly through this one.
There we go.
So
yeah,
that's all I got to say about them. You pretty much covered everything.
And you know what? If we want to go with a little more puns, they've got a great pass game. The Flyers have a great pass game. They can run the ball, but man, they've got some great receivers, and the quarterback they've got down there very well. We could dive into their season a little bit more. Obviously, 6 games in a row. That 6-game win streak is going to stick with them a lot, and I do believe they're going to make it 7 over the Redbirds from Alton. That game's being played Friday night. That'll be a home game for East St. Louis. On to the next one, though. This is a team we've put on our 2 cents a lot, is Lincoln Way East, the number 3 team in the state. You might see them ranked at number 2 in a couple of different rankings. We're using state rankings, though, so you will see that the Caravan are number 2. Lincoln Way East is number 3. I think overall, though, rankings don't really matter at this point in the season. Obviously, they matter for playoff seeds and whether or not you're going to even get in. there's no question that Lincoln Way East is going to get in because of the rules that you need 5 wins, but also because of just an incredible season they've had so far. Lincoln Way East usually falls short to another powerhouse such as Loyola, which they've lost to twice in the state championship. But honestly, if you pin those two teams up against each other right now for a state championship game or just a regular season game overall, I do believe they would win. Following that up, I do think they're going to take down the Porters from Lockport. The Porters are 3-3. They've had an overall pretty average season as far as Lockport football goes. They're looking to end the season off with a winning record, which is something they usually do, but obviously they got to fulfill that. I think the Griffins are going to roll on just like East St. Louis. They're going to pick up their 7th win on the season. I really got nothing else to say though, but what I will say is Jonas Williams transferring to Lincoln Way East from the Bolingbrook. That's got to be one of the biggest shakeups so far for this season regarding high school football. When I first got that notification back in, I believe it was January, or very early on in January, and I started reading all these articles about it, why he's transferring, why he left, the incredible season he had last year. The more and more I kind of got excited for some Griffin football. And, man, they have lived up to the hype. Going 6-0 is hard for anybody, but especially for a team that has been doubted. They've been counted out a lot just because of those 2 losses to Loyola in the state championship the past 2 years. So, I think the Griffins are going to pull away with the win this week.
Yeah, I agree. The Porters had their bright sides and downsides. I think this could be a pretty decent test for the Griffins here. But I think if the Griffins just start off hot and keep going, they should pull this one out by, I think, maybe a landslide.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's fair to say that they've had an incredible season so far. They're like the Flyers from East St. Louis. They're going to keep rolling on with their 7th win. Our next game is a little bit closer of a matchup than the 2 we just talked about. Lyons Township, they're heading all the way out to Downers Grove North. Caravan are actually pretty familiar with DGN.
Yep.
We've seen them twice in the past 2 years, both in the playoffs, obviously. Both teams, though, for this game are 6-0, both undefeated. And, I think this kind of goes for really any sport almost, high school football, college football, professional as well. There always seems to be a couple teams that stick out. You get to this point in the season, a few weeks have passed, and they're undefeated. And I didn't expect Lyons Township to be undefeated 6 weeks in, but what do I know, right? They've got an incredible program. I've looked into them a little bit more. They are ranked number 21 in the state compared to number 7 for the Trojans. So I'm not going to be taking the upset this week. I do believe the Trojans are going to win, and I think they deserve to be ranked a little bit higher. They showed resilience last year in the state championship, against the Caravan, and I think they're going to continue to do so later on this season.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that one. I think the Trojans are going to pull this one out just because we've seen them play against this Caravan team before in the past 2 years, and they both put up really good fights. 2 years ago when the Caravan played them, it was a very close game. I think the Caravan pulled out 21-7. It was a very windy one
it was
in
a
that
strange
one.
game, yeah.
And then in the state championship game, Downers Grove North was hanging with them for most of the game, and then the Caravan just pulled out in the end.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to have to go with the Trojans on this one.
Yeah, when the Trojans show that kind of fight against a powerhouse, you got to take them in a matchup like this. It's going to be a close game, though. That one's being played Friday night at 7:30, just like this one is with the Caravan and the Hilltoppers. Moving on, our last game for our 2 cents. It's a very familiar face for Mount Carmel High School, Loyola. They've got a home game. They just added lights to their stadium this year, but this will be a home game Saturday, 1:30. That's kind of what they're used to. And honestly, looking back at that loss to St. Francis, which was their 2nd loss on the season, it was also their first home game in which they played under the lights. When I heard that and that they lost by 2 scores, 2 touchdowns, that thought kind of stayed up in my head. It's your first game, your first time playing under your own lights. That could affect with really kind of the entire game day experience. Most of these Ramblers aren't used to waking up on a Friday, going to school, and then playing at 7 o'clock on their home turf that night. Usually if they're playing a night game, it's an away game, right? They're in a territory where they feel like they have to prove to the other school why they're better than them, But when you're at your home field, right, everything seems to be a little bit more calm. You're kind of, I guess, used to it. You should be. But Loyola, They have seemed to set into that home field with the lights, but this Saturday they're going to be playing without them. They're playing Providence Catholic. They've had a very respectable season, going 3-3. But I do believe the Celtics will be handed their 4th loss this season. I think Providence has a great roster. They've got a great group of guys over there, especially offensive-wise. I think their offense is pretty underrated as far as Catholic League football goes. But, yeah, the number 6 Loyola Ramblers are going to win this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that one, too. I think the Ramblers are going to win. Both teams, I think, have their up and downs this season. But I think Loyola is starting to really find their groove in this season and going later on. So I think I'm just going to go with the Loyola with this one.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. That's all we've got for our 2 cents. We're going to head to commercial right now, and then in a little bit we're going to talk about stats that we've had that we've collected from the past 6 weeks.
Caravan. Men together, focused on a common goal. Aiming for excellence, grounded in faith. For 123 years and counting. Forming men for leadership. We are MC.
Caravan fans, we're back here at the huddle. It's Brendan Daigler and Matt Malloy. It's been a very eventful 6 weeks of high school football. Really not what I expected back in July when I was looking at these matchups between all these teams. And honestly, I knew it was a possibility that the Caravan would have 2 losses right now, but I certainly wasn't expecting it. I certainly didn't want it either. Friday night was a shock. It was a shock to not even really just our team, but our community. Yep. Losing to Brother Rice is never a great feeling, no matter what sport it is. And losing to them in football in a year, which we really shouldn't, it stings, man. But, you know, we don't want to make excuses or anything, but Friday night, it was very different from, I think, what it should have been. And I think that kind of goes both ways.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of injuries that night.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I was a little disappointed because whenever Rice and Carmel play each other in any sport, I want to see them at full power, both teams. I want to see them go head-to-head because then when the game's done, I don't want there to be any excuses. I don't want there to be anything about, oh, well, what if? You know, we would have won if this happened, if X, Y, Z happened, right? But, yeah, Brother Rice won on a pretty spectacular play at the end. A game-winning field goal with time running out. It was a gritty game. I was down there on the field doing Twitter updates. It's unfortunate, though, for us. We're going to have to, you know, take it and run with it because we are in the home run stretch. We kind of made the turn there. Week 5, Bennett was a 48-13, kind of, you know, set us straight a little bit. And then last week, obviously, a 17-14 loss to Brother Rice is not what we wanted. However, I think there's something very special to highlight about Friday's game is that Emmett Dowling, the junior quarterback, had his first varsity start. It's incredible for the kid. You know, Jack Elliott was out with a shoulder injury, and if you know things look to be from what I know, from what I've heard, is that Jack will not play tomorrow night as well. So nothing's for certain though, but I would say expect Emmett to get the start for this game. And I really hope that he can get a win over Joliet Catholic. This is a big rivalry game for both teams. This is a big overall game for Emmett himself. He's going to be playing for a Carmelite school, against a Carmelite school, at a stadium in which the name has Dowling in it. That's very unique. That's very special. That doesn't happen anywhere else. You know, this is very unique for Emmett. But obviously, this is unique for the whole team. It's very special. It's a great experience, this Carmelite Classic that we're playing. Sean, why don't we go ahead right into the pregame stats? All right. Both teams are 4-2. The Hilltoppers have had a couple of big wins this season, the Caravan as well. Those 2 losses, though, going to stick with them. They need one more win to advance into the playoffs. Joliet Catholic had an incredible playoff run last year, as well as Mount Carmel. Tomorrow we've got a 7:30 kickoff, per usual, around this time of year. Friday Night Lights, October 11th. It's just, we got to mention, though, I didn't write Week 7 on here, man. I wrote Carmelite Classic because we are extremely proud of this game. I think both schools are. Nobody else has a rivalry quite like this. We played each other a lot in the 90s, a little bit before then, but now this is a rivalry that's played maybe 7 or 8 years. It's not common that we play these guys on an annual basis. So to be a student, to be an announcer for this game, I'm extremely grateful that this one ended up on our schedule. Yeah. Moving on, though, talk about being grateful. Marquee picking up Friday's game is incredible for us. We were over the moon when we were told that it was even a possibility, because when we first had conversations about it, they were like, "Don't get your hopes up. We don't know if this is possible." But now it definitely looks to be. We've been in contact. We've been in conversation with a lot of people from Marquee. They've been extremely generous and nice. They obviously know the magnitude of which this game is going to be played at. They know how much this means to us to play Joliet Catholic at our home field. There's nothing quite like it, because usually when we play Joliet Catholic, we're out there at Gately Stadium. Now we're here at Barta Dowling Stadium with a very impressive press box that we get to be broadcasting the game out of. If you don't, I would definitely look into watching the game on Marquee right now. I know a lot of people are used to just opening up YouTube and hitting on our channel, but things are a little bit different. I know a lot of cable suppliers do have Marquee on there, so please check your local listings. Please go see if you can watch this game, and if you can, tune in. It's gonna be one to remember. I think for us, Caravan, the broadcast team wise, but as well the guys on the field, the coaches, everybody there. So, yeah, I mean, we're gonna move on now, though. We'll stop talking about ourselves. We got to talk about why we're playing this game in the first place, and it's because of this one man. Mr. Kevin Hansen was, from what I've heard from Mr. Stimler and from teachers around the school who have won the Green Jacket Award, as well as those who haven't won the award but knew Mr. Hansen very well, he was a great man, Most times when talking about teachers, people will say, "Oh, they're a great teacher," But when you talk about Mr. Hansen, you say "man" for a reason, because this guy lived out those Carmelite values we talk about so much, day in, day out. One of his 14 daily goals was to progress every day, and I think he did just that. From what I've read and heard and seen, this guy was incredible, and I really don't think it's even a question as to whether or not tonight's game should be played in honor of him. Once again, I know we said it earlier, but thank you to Mr. LeCount for organizing a lot of this. We have a trophy right in front of us here on the table that has all of the past, games played and who won. Bright, shiny gold ball on it. Whoever wins will be taking this home, so hopefully it stays here at 64th and Dante. But everything about tonight kind of comes back to Mr. Hansen.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely fitting. Yeah. Moving on, though, from that, the Green Jacket Award is great. I'm actually writing an article about it. Hopefully, when this goes live on YouTube, it will be out, and you can head over to the MC Caravan to go read it. But football-wise, this is going to be a great game too. Joliet Catholic has a great team this year. Brendan, what do we got about our offense, though?
Our offense, we have Jack Elliott with 11 rushing touchdowns. That is more than half of our team's total rushing touchdowns. So
pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Jack Elliott leads, I think, the team on the offensive side in almost every stat except receiving.
Yeah.
And then we have Darnell Taylor Jr. with 4. He's been he can show up in the key moments during these games. And then Luca DeRosa, I've heard he has battled with some injuries and illness. So it's great to see him have a touchdown on the board. And then Emmett Dowling, I think he's going to really need to step up as a leader in these upcoming games because we are unsure of Jack Elliott.
Yeah,
and he's just going to need to command this offense.
Yeah, and honestly, I know we lost Friday night, but seeing Emmett play out there, he didn't seem nervous at all.
No.
He kind of had this attitude of like, yep, I'm supposed to be here. I'm
Yep.
supposed to be throwing the ball. I'm supposed to be calling the plays. He seemed extremely confident in the pocket. He seemed extremely calm in big moments. I would say there was definitely a couple times. I know he threw an interception, but there was a flag that then called it back, so he actually didn't have an interception on the game. But there was a couple of miscues, and that's going to happen with every quarterback every game. But Emmett showed great consistency Friday night. I'm excited to see what he can do tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited what he can see to do tomorrow too. Then Cooper Lehman has 1 rushing touchdown. That's always a nice play you can pull out of the playbook, a little wide receiver end around.
Yeah, I know we used that a lot last year, but to have Cooper this year, it makes it even better. Yeah.
And having Wilson with 1 touchdown.
Yeah, Madden's a great kid. His life kind of revolves around football. I know I have studium with him. Pretty much everything he talks about is football, most notably running the ball. You can tell he loves the position. He loves being a running back. For him to have that 1 touchdown is great. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have 1,430 passing yards on the season. And then Emmett Dowling had 169 last week in his first start. Yeah, what I also saw from Emmett Dowling last week, like you said, he was really calm in the pocket. He took what most guys don't do when they get their first start. They get, I think, a little bit too nervous, and they might not take advantage of the opportunity. I think Emmett did just that. Yeah. He definitely took advantage of his first opportunity starting.
He stepped up. Yeah, that's a 61% pass completion rate. We'll get into the exact numbers in a little bit. To have even 1 passing yard on your first start, when you first get rolling in the game and you have that first completion, you could tell he gained momentum as the game went on. And I know it was kind of a slow, it was a bit of a crawl, to get to the end of that game. And a lot of people were saying, what's going on? Why isn't our offense moving as quick? And my response was always, look, Emmett, he hasn't played at the varsity level yet. He's had a couple snaps, but he hasn't had a start yet. If Emmett goes out there with his offense and they chew 9 minutes off the clock and they kick a field goal, I'm much happier with that than Emmett going out there and throwing 2 or 3 interceptions within 9 minutes. I'd rather put points on the board and take your time than just rush through everything, turn the ball over, and lose all momentum and confidence in yourself. Emmett knew to do just that. He knew to take things at his own pace, which I think over time, like we saw with his older brother Blaney, that pace will eventually get quicker and quicker until the point where he can run a hurry-up offense.
Yeah.
I think that'll eventually happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then combined 76 points in the first quarter and then 69 points scored in the fourth quarter. This tells me this Caravan offense can start off hot, and then if they go down, they can finish the game off.
Exactly. And you know what, Brendan? From my experience the past 3 or 4 years really with this team, being around them and knowing the ins and outs of the offense, this is not that common. The Caravan usually in past years, even though they've gone 14-0 and 13-1, usually they start off pretty slow. They'll come out, they'll do their thing, and I don't think it's them coming out flat. I just think it's them coming out surveying the field, analyzing the other team and taking their time. They've jumped right to the gun though. That's incredible. 76 points in the first quarter, and then followed up. The second most in the fourth was 69. It's awesome, and like you said, it shows me they can either start off very well, or if they need to pull some strings and end the game with a few scores, they can do just that. So, moving on though, I think this is where our team, has kind of shined this year in certain games. Our defense has been awesome. Brendan, what do you got to say so far as a couple of these seniors on this team that have just been doing great defensively?
Yeah. 7 interceptions returned for 84 yards. Having Javi Payne, Xander Gorman, Jackson Barons, and Steven Winkler. I know Javi, Xander, and Jackson, they're all seniors, and they're all up on this board for interceptions. And I think, honestly, a key thing, our team leader in interceptions, Javi, he's currently going to be out for a bit, as I've heard, with a little bit of a shoulder dislocation. So I think everyone else on this team, some juniors like Gavin Conjar, I think are going to need to step up
Absolutely.
in Javi's position and take place of what Javi did on that defense, commanding them with Xander. And if they can do that, they can play even better defense than they did with Javi.
Right. Yeah. That injury last Friday night, it stings throughout the entire sideline. You can just see the smiles kind of fade away, and those thoughts of like, oh, we still have our defense. Even if our offense has to punt on 3rd and long, like we can still send Javi and the guys out there to maybe force an interception, force a fumble, something like that, anything to get the ball. And when he went down, especially anything upper body, you get a little worried. But, I'd say luckily, it was a pretty hard hit. I'd say luckily it was just his shoulder. You don't want anything to be anything higher than that, right? Any head injuries. So hopefully Javi will be back. I really don't know as far as the timeline goes in the future for him. But 3 interceptions is incredible for 5.5 games, I guess. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And then we have 9 sacks for 68 yards by Muha, Igubuka, Jones, Pusateri, and Joey Quinn. Like I said, I think most teams are trying to knock out Braden Jones and Joey Quinn on those end sides.
Absolutely.
Maybe a little double team action. That's what Muha got the 5 sacks from. I think the offensive line was so focused on trying to keep Braden Jones and Joey Quinn out, it just freed up the lane for Muha to do a little blitz from going into the C gap or coming straight from the A.
Exactly, yeah. When you see defenses that play us come out with a 4-man front or anything like that, to be honest, I'm not used to it. I'm so used to our 3-man front consisting of Joey Quinn, Braden Jones, and then, throw Derek Murray or the Bone Crusher in there, something like that at nose. I think our defensive line is just one of those things that we can count on if we need to stop, especially on the run game. I think passing-wise, it's been tough for both Braden and Joey. Not because of their lack of talent, because of their lack of time. When you're getting double teamed and you're trying to put pressure in the pocket, the number one thing you need is just time, because you have the strength to go on and continue with the play. It's not like they're getting pancaked or anything. They're staying on their feet. They're moving their lower body. But it's just harder for them to get in the backfield because they've got another man on them.
Yeah.
The run game, though, they've been absolutely fantastic with that. I'd say most of the big plays that this defense lets up is a pass play. It is, some ridiculously long touchdown or just a long pass, maybe 40 or 50 yards. So these guys have been doing great. Obviously, though, Muha with 5 sacks, he had 2 last Friday night. It kind of sparked this energy. It ignited a fire into a team that really needed something to stick to hold on to.
Yeah.
And I know we didn't win Friday night, but we didn't give up. And
no, we did not.
Muha was definitely the leader of that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to add, last week, our defense against Brother Rice played almost to perfection, only holding Brother Rice to 17 points. I mean, I think that's good for any other team. I mean, when you're having a couple of your star leaders out and you only hold a team to 17 points, I think that just shows that that no matter who is at a position, that they can win.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you take Javi out, they obviously started attacking that side of the field more, as any team would do. But our backups and those junior leaders like Gavin Conjar, they stepped up. They shifted over. They started attacking the weak side. They forced Rice to punt a few times. And I know we lost on a field goal, but, man, it could have been a whole lot worse than that. And the defense just really held it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Then Muha leads the team with 54 tackles this year. This time last year he had 49. So I think Muha is just on pace to have a better season than last season.
He ended last season with 92 tackles, beating out Parker Starts, who had 91. Christos and I, we love to talk about this, kind of the tackle race. We always love to see who's going to end up in first. And I know these guys love seeing it too. Muha's always asking to see, he's like, you got those stats, right? He's kind of trying to see his totals and everything. But yeah, 54 tackles through 6 weeks is awesome. And I know Joliet Catholic, they kind of like to run it in Muha's direction on the field, we'll say. So I think he'll have a lot more tomorrow as well. Yeah. Moving on, though, these are our key players. You'll notice we don't have a single senior up there because I really wanted to emphasize the point that now, like you said, Brendan, it's time for these younger guys to step up because our seniors have either already proven themselves or they're out. They're injured. They're, for some reason, they just cannot play tomorrow night. So looking toward tomorrow, I'll start off. It's definitely got to be Emmett Dowling. He's got the family name on the stadium. This is a night in which he is being given the opportunity to do something incredible, and I have full faith in him to show up and show out.
Yeah.
Last week, first varsity start, went 17 for 28 on the night for 169 yards, like we mentioned. He had 2 total passing touchdowns, both of those to Quentin Burrell. I wasn't shocked by that. I knew that Q was going to be one of his favorite guys to throw to, especially there in the red zone. He liked to target Coop a lot as well. It seemed like number 4 and 5 connected very well with number 7. So, and we've mentioned it a lot already, but Emmett is playing because Elliott is down and out with a shoulder injury. So he's going to be doing great things tomorrow. Though I do believe that he can lead this offense to put a lot of points up on the board against this Hilltopper defense. As far as younger guys go, Brendan, excuse me, who else do we have?
We have sophomore DB Tarvarius Harrington. He has a total of 15 total tackles on the season with 7 solo. Having, I think, a sophomore on one of the best varsity teams in the state stepping up and playing is just going to be huge. I think because later on, 2 years from now, he's still going to be on the team, and I think if he keeps making these plays with also he has 5 pass breakups, I think by senior he'll be one of the star players of the state.
I believe that too. I think something I'll say about Tavares is, when he's out there playing on the field, you don't really notice him.
No.
That's not a knock against him. That's a compliment. To be a DB and sneaky like that, you got to like that in some guys. Other guys are very colorful. They like to show their presence. They like to make it known that they're there. Tavares, not so much. He kind of likes to stick to his guy. He keeps up with them. He's an incredibly fast dude. 5 PBUs is incredible as well, but he has shown consistency, man. I've really never seen him have one game where it's like, yeah, that was a bad night for him. Like, no, he's had a lot of just above average games, and if you can get that out of him every single week, that's perfect. That's that's exactly what we need out of him. So I'll finish it off here because I kind of thought it was not illegal, but just kind of an unwritten rule to have a freshman playing up on varsity.
Yeah.
Not so much this year. Caleb Tucker, the bone crusher, has stepped up. We had to throw him on one of these pregame shows, man. He's got 7 total tackles on the season. He's a really big kid. I don't know if you could tell from his nickname, the Bone Crusher. You could probably infer that. But yeah, he was moved up from the freshman team straight to varsity very early on, and it looks to be like he's going to play all 4 years on varsity. I really hope so. I hope he has a great high school career, and he is starting it off fantastically with his freshman year. Yeah,
like you mentioned earlier, having his freshman stats so far, he's had 7 total tackles and 0.5 TFLs for 1.5 yards. Like you said, he's the guy that having this kind of player all 4 years, he's the guy that's going to be able to grow and hold down their defensive line and stop the run up the middle. So I think he's a very key player. He's going to be a name you're going to hear, I think, a lot in the next 4 years coming.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when we're broadcasting the game on national TV tomorrow, that's one of the many things you should look out for, is when things hit 3rd down and we need to stop a run right up the middle, it's going to be the bone crusher running out there to stop it. Moving on, talking about this rivalry game, though, Brendan, you've picked out a stat for us, and I completely agree. This is definitely something we need to take note of.
Yeah, the Caravan and JCA haven't played in over 17 years.
Wow.
But they still hold a 28-9 record over the Hilltoppers. I mean, this program has changed a lot from what it was back in 17 years ago. I mean, some of the kids on the Caravan team, which I think is basically almost all the juniors, they were not even really alive when this last game happened.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, actually. When I heard 2007, I didn't really think of a football game. I thought of the year I was born,
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, I think, for that we haven't seen them in the past 17 years. I think it is. We are due for a game. We are due for a nice night of Carmelite football, and I'm extremely excited for it. I grew up. My Uncle Dan, shout out to my Uncle Dan O'Connor. Everybody knows him as the Dean, but growing up, I knew him as really he embodied Mount Carmel, and a part of that was playing Joliet Catholic pretty much every single season in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I know we did lose to them in the state championship. There was one year where we did that in the 90s, but we also had a couple games that went to overtime. We had a couple games in which they started off slow, picked up real quick. But yeah, I like asking my uncle about JCA and how big those games were.
Yeah.
Right, wearing the gold pants, and it just seemed it's hard to put it in words. I guess I'm looking for something right now. I'll think of it later. I'll say it on the broadcast tomorrow. But there's something very unique and special about these two teams meeting up on the football field.
Yeah.
Moving on, our player of the week, it's got to be Matt Muha, right,
yes.
Brendan? We haven't talked about him yet. I figured tomorrow's game would be a perfect game to highlight for him, though, because when you think Joliet Catholic, when you think Mount Carmel, you think of some gritty games, right? You think of some games that went to overtime. You think of some games that were won on a last-second field goal or touchdown. You think of some games in which the hits were very, very hard and strong. Yeah. Muha embodies that. Muha is perfect for a game against Joliet Catholic. He's, like we've mentioned it already, 54 total tackles, 26 of those being on his own. He's got 9.5 for a loss, that making up almost half of an entire field. 5 total sacks for almost 40 yards, a PBU, and a forced fumble. This guy is a senior leader like Javi Payne, who will be out. We've talked a lot about him. Now the focus is going to switch over to Muha, leading the younger guys.
Yep.
Right? Muha knows this. He knows how much leadership he carries. He knows the specific qualities he has, and he plays to his strengths. He plays exactly the way he wants to play football. And for a game like tomorrow's, I think that's exactly what we're going to need on defense. On defense especially. We need guys to be confident. If there's anybody that's confident, it's Matt Muha. All right. CCL Blue, man. We're in the home run stretch. We're getting to the end of it. 3 weeks from now, this leaderboard could look very different. It could look quite like the opposite of what it looks right now, or it could be exactly the same. Anything is up for grabs right now. Each team will have one more conference game. As you can see, they've each played 2. Carmel and Rice both going 1-1. The Caravans still need to play the Ramblers Week 9. That will be streamed here on YouTube. It's going to be a home game for the Caravan. I'm excited for that one.
Yes.
But I'm still focused on tomorrow's game. Obviously, this is huge for both schools. Joliet Catholic, they play in the CCL Orange. The blue is a little bit more competitive, but it has also been a whole lot more chaotic this year. Ignatius being at the bottom, they were at the top. They were in first place for a while there for the first couple of weeks. Brendan, what should fans know kind of coming into the last 3 games here? What should they know about the CCL Blue?
The CCL Blue, I think it's probably one of the hardest conferences to actually win in because you have powerhouses as in Loyola Academy and Mount Carmel. And then you also have some teams that can, I think, sneak up on you, like St. Ignatius. They did that to us a few years ago. Yeah. And then Brother Rice obviously did that to us last week. Yeah. So I think just going up against any one of these teams, it's going to be a fight to the battle.
It's going to be a fight for these last 3 games. It's going to be a fight to win the CCL Blue. It's going to be a fight in the playoffs for these guys. All 4 teams have a shot at doing very well. And you know what? I'll say I think all 4 teams have a shot to go down, to ISU. All 4 teams have a shot of doing something great. Yeah. I think obviously for Loyola and Mount Carmel, it's kind of expected that they'll reach that level of success. But for Rice and Iggy, it's up for grabs. They just got to go out and get it. Yeah. All right. Looking ahead though for the Caravan. Week 8, they have Fenwick. Fenwick's home field is Triton College, so we'll be heading out there. We will be giving you some live Twitter updates, some coverage of that game. And Week 9, CCL Blue matchup like we were just talking about. This one will be streamed here on CBN. We also have the playoff schedule there on the right, but I want to focus, of course, on Week 9. That's going to be a huge game. it has turned into, honestly, the biggest rivalry, I think, across all sports here at MC. It triumphs over everything because of how much it means to everybody here. Yeah. Brendan, what should fans know about Loyola? What should fans expect, especially because both teams will have at least 2 losses heading into that game?
So Loyola, like I've said before, they had their ups and downs this season, but that doesn't change the team that they were when they're coming in to face the Caravan. Loyola, the past few years, it's been a very close game. The Caravan just lost by a thread last year against Loyola, and then the year before, they also won by a thread.
Yeah.
So I think just the Caravan they have to be ready for this Loyola team. Both teams have 2 losses. The Caravan, they just got to be ready. Like, they have to treat this like they're facing a college football team in a scrimmage, I would say, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it means that much. It really does for everybody on this team. I know there's talks of Jack Elliott hopefully coming back to play in that one, but honestly, you know what? I love that whole old school kind of feel. I love that Emmett gets to play for his family. If Emmett Dowling has to go out there and start that game, you know what? Buckle up. Like it's gonna be a stressful night. It's probably not gonna be an easy win, even if Jack was playing. But especially if Emmett's in there, get ready. It's gonna be a shootout, I think. Yeah. That's all we have, folks. This one is presented to you by the Caravan Media Group, streamed here on the Caravan Broadcast Network. We're gonna put it back to the desk now because I just want to shout out, from Mr. Nunez, who won it in 2016, to Mr. Collier, who won it in 2024. Everybody that has won the Green Jacket Award is extremely deserving of it. I went out and interviewed the 6 awardees that still currently work here at Mount Carmel, and I got kind of a feel of what tomorrow's game means to them. And from the answers I got, from the tone of voice they used, from the attitude they had, I think just everybody here at this school, it's no question as to whether or not this is going to be an extremely blissful night, I guess I'll say, because to honor Mr. Hansen, we usually only do it around the time of St. Patrick's Day when Baldrick's going on and everything like that. But to honor him really at a football game in October, that's even better. There's never a bad or wrong time to give credit to one of the best teachers we've ever had here at Carmel. So, Brendan, it's a great time coming out here in the huddle. This was streamed on Thursday night. Tomorrow, the game will be on the Marquee Sports Network. I really can't believe I'm saying that, but here we are. Please go check your local listings. We are extremely excited to be on national TV, but more importantly, we're ready. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, and good night, Chicago.